Assalamu alaikum, and we're back. An extended mid morning talk show today for a very, very special reason to honor a very, very special person. So, as a resident, previous resident of Emerentia, I lived there for almost 17 years. I've just recently moved to Northcliffe, but Northcliffe was not far, so I would still visit Emerentia to go to all of my do all of my business there and my shopping. So, as a resident of Emerentia, every resident in Emerentia would know a very, very special person who we all fondly call Uncle Anwar or Uncle Anwar, depending on how well you knew him. So, Uncle Anwar was actually basically just in charge of the parking lot at Checkers. So, he was in charge of all the car guards and the security guards. But he played such a pivotal role in everybody's life in our community. And he unfortunately passed on last week. Alhamdulillah, he was very blessed to get Friday, Jummah. And I think that in itself just shows the kind of person he was, because we know as Muslims to pass on in Ramadan, to pass on a Jummah in Ramadan, you must have led a very beautiful life. And Allah must have been very pleased with you. Inshallah, Ameen. So just a little bit of background. Uncle Anwar, or I would call him Uncle Anwar, we had a long relationship with him because he actually worked with my father-in-law in Durban many, many years back, and they were close friends. And when my in-laws moved in with us in Emirates, and my father-in-law was retired, and he would do all of the the to and fro with my kids were very little at the time. Since then my father has also passed on, but his time he would often just take the car and just sit at Checkers and spend time with Uncle Anwar there. And Uncle Anwar would also come to our home quite often, share meals with us, because they were good buddies. So we had a very special bond with him. In fact, if I recall, once when after my father-in-law passed away and we were having a khatam for him, and we were having the khatam in Lens because a lot of the families there, and we just had a booked a hall there, and we had a khatam for after he passed away. We'd obviously invited Uncle Anwar, and my husband said, Zain said to Uncle Anwar, are you okay? Do you need transport? Can we get you there? And he was like, no, I'll be fine. I'll get there. And Alhamdulillah, he made his way. He sorted himself out. He was there. He was first. I think he had arrived at the venue even before we had as the family, and he was sitting and praying, and that was the kind of person Uncle Anwar was. He was there for everybody. But before I go and tell you more of my anecdotes and my stories of Uncle Anwar, I'm going to introduce to you a few of our guests today. We're very blessed to have people from our community who all have had special, separate, individual relationships with Uncle Anwar. I'm going to introduce first Amina Frense-Kasrils, who's been a long time Greenside resident. Assalamu alaikum, Amina, and welcome to the show.
Alaikum salam, Rashida, and to the listeners.
It's a pleasure having you today. So I don't know where to start, but if there is any one word or one line that you can say about Uncle Anwar to try and capture who he was to the viewers and the listeners who might never have met him, how would you describe Uncle Anwar?
Compassionate and kind and caring for us creatures, big and small. I mean, one of the things that we miss about him, amongst the other things we'll talk about, is putting out bowls of water for the birds to feed, to drink, and also to bath in. And I don't know if you're aware that a well is going to be named in his honor by the African Muslim Agency, I believe.
Yes. Yes,
Which I think it's a lovely tribute in trying to remember him. But I think compassionate and kind, and I would say he was a social institution for us in this area. I believe, and maybe you know the exact date. At some stage, he said to me, "I've been working here for over 20 years."
Yes.
Which is quite something. But he was a proud and reserved father and grandfather, and as you might know, he was devastated when his son passed away
Very
unexpectedly.
true.
But
Yes, I
we looked
remember that
out.
very well.
Yeah, we looked out for him whenever we did shopping at Checkers, and that's almost on a daily basis. Maybe 3 times a week, I would say. We'd look out for his car, a blue Renault. So it's a question of whether I see the car and know that he's somewhere. He's not far away. He's assisting somebody whether it's carrying groceries to the car, or sharing whatever you know is available on the day. That would be dishing out local newspapers and many more other activities. It sounds mundane, but it was helpful. For example, people could access empty boxes from him, whether they were moving house or packing books, like I did, and also access the boxes. Or even during Ramadan, he would share the dates that he had. At the beginning of the year, the annual calendar, for example, he would share. For me, it was very moving. This very proud but reserved, kind gentleman who meant so much for so many people on so many different levels.
Absolutely. I mean, if I had to think about one word to describe me, I'd probably say humility. While he was a very very proud person, you know, much as he accepted help, he never asked for it, you know. So often we would say, okay, Uncle Anwar, this is for you, and he'd say jazakallah, and he'd be very appreciative of it. At the same time, I think he gave so much to people. You know, I remember a few years back when Checkers started change their opening hours, when they started opening from 8 to 8, 12 hours, and people would then have ability or be able to shop in the evenings. And he told me one day, he says, you know, I don't know what's wrong with these people. Why must they come at night to shop? You know, it's dangerous. And they must bring the family and bring the children, and they come and they do all their shopping there. And I tell them, you know, they mustn't come at night. They must do all their things and finish it off in the morning. And I mean, that's just the kind of person he was. He was very ready to give advice. He was very ready to share his opinion, you know. And he knew people on a personal level. I mean, I would probably imagine he knew me because he knew my father-in-law very well. He knew my children. He knew my husband. So we got to know each other quite well. But even if you were just a normal resident who came in there, he had a special word, or and he knew, okay, you're going to need the big trolley today, or you're going to need this. And he would sort whatever you needed. Like you say, if you needed boxes, or if you needed information on Checkers, or whatever it was, you know, he in many ways, he was actually Checkers. And that's something we're going to discuss a little bit further with our next guest, who we're going to move on to. My producer's telling me that I need to move on because I know we can talk forever. So, Amina, any last words you have to say about Uncle Anwar before we move on to our next guest?
Well, we were very fond of him, my husband included, and we miss him. We miss his humility, as you have said, but we'd also miss his weekly Juma Mubaraks. It was always something that we looked forward to. And as I said, the birds are going dry. They don't have a bird bath any longer. Nobody's, giving them a bowl of water. And yeah, Uncle Anwar as an institution, I think we'll miss his quiet disposition. With his deteriorating health, it became very difficult to have a conversation. But he was there, and I would, you know, we'd say our best wishes and courage for him to carry on. So I hope he had a peaceful passing, and may he be granted Jannah.
Ameen, Ameen. Inshallah ta'ala. Jazakallah, Amina. Thank you. And on that note, we're going to move on to our next guest, somebody who needs very little introduction, Mr. Ashraf Garda, or Uncle Ashraf Garda, who we know is founder of Champion South Africa, an amazing institution, which he's not going to talk about today because we've got to talk about something more important, or someone more important. And he's also host of the National Pulse on SAFM radio. Assalamu alaikum and welcome, Uncle Ashraf. Before we move on to talk to you a little bit about Uncle Anwar, we're going to play two of the videos, please. So Ashraf Garda would do a TikTok video, and he's done one or two with Uncle Ashraf. So we've got those, and we're going to play those now. Are we ready to play those?
Holidays now.
Jazakallah.
Just about everybody's gone on holiday, and it's the day after Christmas, and I get to Checkers in Emiratia, and I find Anwar here. So I've asked you this before. Let me check. Why are you here? Like, why are you not yet gone somewhere?
I'm going for a holiday.
Where are you going to?
Norway?
You're going to Norway?
Yes.
Okay.
Romania?
Norway, Romania.
and Bucharest.
You're going to 3 places.
Yes,
I need to get this right. He's going to Norway. He's going to Romania.
and
He's going to
Bucharest.
Bucharest. I'm a bit confused. I mean, where does he get the bucks to do all of that? You better explain now. You're going to Norway?
Romania and Bucharest.
But just explain. I don't get this. Norway as in what?
No, it means nowhere.
Oh, you're going nowhere. Nowhere. All right?
Romania and Romania.
Let's go to Romania. Romania. Yeah.
Bucharest.
He's already booked his rest. My goodness. He's certainly not resting today. So, Anwaar is part of the whole Emiratia scenario, okay? So I thought I'd ask him, like I ask everybody else. Anwaar, are you okay?
No, I'm not okay. I'm sick.
What do you mean you're not okay?
I'm sick.
He says he's checkers. Anwaar is not okay, he's checkers. He's true to the brand checkers.
Assalamu alaikum, jazakallah for that. Lovely to have you on the show. Uncle Ashraf, how are you doing today?
I'm very good, Rashida. Good to connect with you, but of course on a very sad occasion, isn't it? Just to think we're reflecting with Anwar in the past tense.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, he was such a live wire, I mean, when you took those videos, he was already, I think he'd already suffered his first stroke, and it had already
Yeah.
affected his speech. He'd slowed down quite a bit. But in spite of all that, he still had the vibrancy. He was always, no matter if you came to him and you saw him and you greeted him, he was ever ready to help you, bring your trolley quickly, and nothing slowed him down. Amina had also mentioned about his passing. When his son Siraj passed away, he was very sad. And I remember before he left to go to Durban, and I spoke to him and I wished him well, and I, conveyed my condolences. And it was a very, very difficult period for him. I think for any parent to have to bury a child is difficult. But he had also lost his wife a few years before that. And much as those things had made him feel down, he never let that show when he was engaging and interacting with other people. How did you develop a relationship with him? I mean, do you even recall the first time you met him or spoke to him, or was because he was such an institution, was he just always there in the background?
No, in fact, I mean, I was introduced to him. So when we moved into Greenside, it's about just over 10 years, right? When we moved in, probably the next day or 2 days later, I went to now Checkers for the first time as a resident of the community, right? And my wife's cousin, Hassan Dullah, Hassan Mohammed was at Checkers, and he lives in Emiratia. And he's like, Ashraf, I need you to meet Anwar. You have to meet Anwar, because Anwar is the man to know at Checkers. Now, at that stage, I had no idea who this person was. And of course, I was introduced and like, okay, hello, said a couple of words, and that's the end of that discussion, right? But, not realizing that in the years to follow, if you go to Checkers and if Anwar is not there, it's really not Checkers. It's just not the same thing, right? So that first introduction, marked the beginning of regular conversations whenever I was there, right? And some were lighthearted, some were serious, some were about the football club that he was annoyed with because they're not winning, called Manchester United, all that sort of thing. But that was ongoing, right? So, that's the one thing. And the other, I mean, you asked Amina as well as yourself. You gave the one word. I mean, for me, I think like 2 words. One is that he was the ultimate connector, right? And number 2, he was Checkers, right? He was a connector because of his ability to connect us to Checkers, actually, right? And us to each other in that car park, as we know. Like, that was his office, right? And the other part that where he was Checkers, because if I asked you now who's the manager of Checkers, you'd be battling to find not even a name. You'd even battle to give a face. Okay, so the face of Checkers was Anwar, right? And that point, the video you played, the first one about the holidays. I mean, he told that to me like 3-4 years ago, just in the car park, and we had a good laugh because it was December, right? And then I realized, so of course, being in the media space, I realized that, these things need to be documented, man, because they just will be forgotten otherwise. So then
Mm.
about like 3 years later, after telling me that the first time, and I know he's told you that as well, that was his common
Mhm.
line in the holidays, I then said,
Mhm.
come on, I need to record you, man. So
Mhm.
I recorded him, and I mean, it was big fun. I'm going to Romania. I'm going to, I'm going to Romania. Ultimately, I'm going to Bucharest because I'm going to rest here, and I'm going to Romania because I'm not going anywhere, that type of thing, right? So that sort of gave a sense of his sharp wit, because he had wit about himself. And that
Yes.
was very admirable, right? And then, of course, fairly recently, the second one that I did, where I just asked him, Anwar, how are you? And it's like, I'm not okay. Like, why are you not okay? And he said, I'm Checkers. And he just started laughing, right? And I knew the moment. I said, come on, you have to record this thing, right? Which, of course, we did, right? Now, why I'm saying that is, when we recorded the first one, the amount of people, the one about the holidays, the amount of people who saw it was crazy, okay? And when he then saw me again, he told me, Ashraf, you know what? You made me famous, man. I said, what do you mean? He says, I've had calls from Durban, people in Roshni, other people in Joburg, people who come here to check us. They are teasing me to say, oh, we've seen you on Instagram or TikTok. Like, everybody has seen it. And he said, I'm telling you, I've had messages from people in Ireland and in the USA, South Africans who now maybe living there or working there. And he said,
Mm.
they've all seen it. So he says, you've made me famous, man, right? So then when he did the second one as well, the one about I'm not okay, I'm Checkers, again he said, like, it's amazing how people responded to him. So I can tell you what we then decided. I told him, Anwar, you know what, whenever you're up for these one-liners, but it can't be dull, boring one-liners, tell me, just message me, I'll come there and I'll record you. I'll put it on my TikTok and Instagram accounts for now, but the plan must actually be that you must have your own Instagram account, your own TikTok account, so that we
Mhm.
can actually place it all there, right? And he said, okay, that's fine. And then a few times, because I think he loved it. He really loved it. It wasn't me forcing him to do anything. He was thrilled by it, okay? And he
Wow.
understood in that moment the power of his impact it was making, right? Because the attention he was getting was crazy, right? So that was the plan. Then a few times thereafter, I went to Checkers and I said, like, have you got your lines? Like, no, I don't have anything at the moment. Let me think about it. Or he gave me one or two lines which were like pretty boring, and I said, no, man, that's not going to work. You got to be sharper and think of something, right? And then it was like, I think November. That's November that just passed now. And then I realized, when I went back a few times thereafter, he was not around quite a few
Mm.
times. And
Mm.
then I asked the guys who work here, I says, where's Anwar? And he said, you know what? He's had a stroke and he's not well, and he's just not coming here any longer. Then I called him and he didn't reply. And I WhatsApped him and he didn't reply. And you know what? I did it again, he didn't reply. And of course, being the holiday period, and then just came back after the holidays, we never saw each other again, right? But
Mm.
I mean, that's the point about that was the plan for me to create a TikTok and Instagram thing in his name to say, come on, man, you know what? You run with this thing and you have your one-liners, right? So I mean, that I thought was interesting, and as I made reference to, I think those videos, I mean, it evoked a reaction, because you and I can talk the whole day on the show, but nothing sums up Anwar better than those
Mhm.
videos. It sums
Mhm.
up the whole personality in 2 minutes, right? So I think that was fabulous. But there were a few other things that I'd like to mention. One is, whenever I went there, he asked, "Where's your wife? Where's Jamila?" Because she started
Mm.
going less during the COVID era, and then was ordering more online. So that 60 minutes, like, come on, where's Jamila? Where's your wife,
Mm.
right? And I would ask about my children too. But there were two things of significance that I think I understand will stand out. One is when I was there were two occasions when I needed to call home for something, and my battery was flat on my phone, right? Because I was getting something from Checkers and I couldn't do it. And he's like, no, you need to use my phone. Don't worry about anything else. Use my phone, right? So think about like the car guard telling you use my phone, right? But perhaps the most profound one was there was a day when I bought some stuff, and it probably came to about 850 rands or so. And I went to pay, and I realized I left my wallet. Well, it wasn't around. I didn't have the wallet, so it clearly wasn't in the car. It was at home or something or the other, right? So I told them, of course, just keep it there. And they left the trolley there, and I went to my car and I looked in the car and I checked around where my wallet was, and of course it was not there. And I went back to tell them, okay, look, just keep it here because I'll have to go home. Like, such a nuisance. I need to go home and come back. And Anwar asked me, like, what's the problem? And I explained to him. He says, now, what's your problem? Why do you want to go home? I said, well, I need the money. He said, you just wait. And he went to that office behind, where the management team is. And he came out and he gave me 850 rand. He said, right, you pay for it. When you see me, you can come back. And then when you
Mm.
pay, that's it. And that's what
Wow.
happened. So he said,
Mm.
no, they keep all my money. They keep my money at the back there. There's my money. You don't worry. And I mean, if there was nothing else, but just that gesture is
Yes.
remarkable. And it's one moment of impact in one's life. And
Hmm.
therefore one must say, inshallah, may Allah grant him Jannah for that. Because yes, I was going to
Ameen.
come back, but how many people, even if they're going to come in, even if they're your family, you don't get an 850 rand on the spot.
Just
It's like,
like that.
here's your
Yeah.
money, come on, man, you can come back again whenever you see me. He didn't even say tomorrow, it's just whenever.
Mm.
And I
Mm.
think that's really sums up Anwar the connector, Anwar being checkers. And as Mariam was saying it before we went on live, yes, from a champion South Africa perspective, we always say, you build a champion nation by building a champion community. And Anwar essentially or
Definitely.
quintessentially is a community champion in the community,
Absolutely.
and who effectively was the glue that kept so many people together, the absolute champion connector.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Thank you for your thoughts and your insights. I think Mariam is actually going to be a little bit disappointed because you picked on the word connector. Because I know how strongly she feels about Anwar. He knew everybody in her family, and he would, be able to connect everybody and join the dots. He was like that with me also. I would never be there until I would never leave until he said, "Please give salams to your mom-in-law. How is Zain? How are the children? I hope they're all well." He'd ask about everybody, often by name, and that was the kind of person he was. He just connected with everybody on such a personal, deep level. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming on board and helping us to honor this wonderful person,
It's
Anwar
a
Sheikh.
pleasure. And of course, I mean, the sad part, of course, we never said goodbye. And as you know, he was then, when he passed away, he was buried in Durban. So he's like whisked off in the middle of the
Correct.
night, right? But I mean, clearly, if I had to tell him now my last word, I said, I would say, Anwar, you really are a community champion. I've never told him that. But beyond that, may Allah, inshallah, grant him Jannah. Inshallah, I mean.
Ameen. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you
Wa
so
alaikum
much,
salam.
Uncle Ashraf. And we're going to be moving on to somebody who's very familiar with all the listeners and viewers of Salam Media. Assalamu alaikum. Appa Mariam, welcome to the show. Before we even talk about Uncle Anwar, I just want to say Mubarak on the new grandchild. I hope Shireen and the baby are doing better, inshallah ta'ala. We miss you here. We miss you at Salam Media and your vibrant presence. But I hope wherever you are, you're doing what you need to do and you'll be back soon, inshallah. I hope you're enjoying a Ramadan in a different context. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to the show.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace and blessings to yourself. It's so good to see you there on that side of the mic, sitting in their chair, mashallah. And assalamu alaikum to all my listeners. Ramadan is a special time and a special month for me. And, I look forward to my inspired afternoons, but Allah had better plans for me this year, and I needed to be there for the family in Melbourne. Jazakallah for that. Congratulations on our beautiful grandson. Please make dua. At the moment, he's tiny, but he's strong. He's fighting. He's on oxygen and a whole lot of machines and that on there. But with everybody's duas, the world over, inshallah, I received messages of support and duas from everywhere, from Mecca to Canada to South Africa. Inshallah, in this month of mercy, Allah is going to put it in him that he will fight through, inshallah. But it's so good to connect with you, and shukran for giving up so generously of your time. The show ends at 1:00, but you graciously did this because we definitely had to honor Uncle Enver and his legacy. Because you know what? I tell everybody, we normally honor people who have accomplished things in terms of their academia, in terms of their social standings, financially in the community or who they are. But for me, Uncle Enver encompassed that spirit of a community champion. He had, when we read about the qualities of Sahaba, and we read Fazale Sadakat, Fazale Amal, and we see the qualities the Sahaba had. That is who Uncle Enver was. That kind, generous, compassionate, loving person. Is Ashraf said, imagine Ashraf he was in need. And Uncle Enver came up with that 800, and that's who he was. As you're mentioning the Checkers, before Checkers used to close at 6. And then at 5 to 6, sometimes you'd remember, oh, you've
Yes.
forgotten bread or milk, or bread is short, or the children this. Then remember they needed something for school the next day. What do we do, Rashi? We used to phone Uncle
Mm.
Enver. Uncle Enver, can you please go and get me bread? Can you please buy me milk? I'll be there at quarter past. Or Uncle Enver would say, don't worry, I'll come drop it off. So Uncle Enver was Checker 60 before Checker 60
Before
became
Checkers
Checker
60.
60. He was on Checker 60. So he used to do this, and I know I wasn't the only one. My husband used to get rather annoyed that I was inconveniencing and giving taklif to Uncle Enver, asking this, and he used to laugh, and he used to show Adi in the car. There were 6 or 7 other deliveries he had to make before he heads home. So I still ask, you see, I'm not the only one, because he used to, like, frown at my incompetence. That couldn't I check this an hour earlier, that I needed to get these things. But he was, I'm telling you, quintessential 60, Checker 60 was our beloved Uncle Enver.
Absolutely. And just like you sharing some of your stories, everybody in the community has stories about him. When we were thinking about when we were having the show and we said, okay, Salam Media said they would give us half an hour, which we already taken more of. But Alhamdulillah, no one is going to push me off this chair just yet. We've got one more guest to go. And we were saying, who are we going to talk to? There were so many candidates that we could have possibly phoned and spoken about. And each of them would have their own individual story and
Absolutely.
own individual connection with them. So Alhamdulillah, I mean, I think Uncle Enver's legacy is way more than we can understand as individuals. I think he touched so many people's, so many different lives at so many different occasions. And like you say, he knew everybody, and he would even say, I'm sure when Adil was complaining to you about this, he would say, no, don't worry about it. He would
No,
calm
he
Adil
showed
down.
Adil the groceries at the back that he needed to deliver. And
Yeah,
also,
exactly.
when my mom, if I had come in to check us, and he'll tell me, make quick, your mom's going to leave because your mom's here. Oh, you just missed your sister-in-law. Adil's sister was just here now. And
Oh.
every time, like you, he used to ask me, how's the children? So let me tell you, I am now, alhamdulillah, this May is going to be 28 years since I'm a resident of Greenside, Emirates. I know you always joke and say I'm the mayor of the area, but alhamdulillah, I grew up in the community. We were like the 5th Muslim family or uh, person of color, Indian descent family in the area. And Uncle Enver came there, I think it was 20 years ago. Abdurrahman was around 5 years old, around about the same age of Ryan and Abdurrahman when you were also around there. And previously, they were car managers of Afrikaner descent. And I don't know what happened. One day, they just left. And then I met this uncle, the proverbial Durban uncle, and he came there and he introduced himself. And I introduced myself. And then he got to speak to the children. But then it was a different experience because he wasn't your regular car guard or anybody. He joked with you, as Amina mentioned before. You could fetch the trolley. I had little kids at the time. Shireen, Yasira, and Abdurrahman was small. He got the trolley. He'd put Abdurrahman in the trolley. He'd have the checkers paper ready for me for the specials. If butter was on special, he knew, I want the butter. I need so many. He would even tell me, you know what, there's a limit to them. But if you need come today, buy today, and then come another day and purchase your butter. And then so in Ramadan, I remember the first Ramadan, we called him home. He said, no, Uncle Enver, the children actually begged him, Uncle Enver, you must come home and you must break fast with us. And he told Abdurrahman, you're not fasting, eh? I'm going to see if you sneak a chocolate. And he says, no, Uncle Enver, come home and see. I promise you I'm fasting. And Enver came home, and it was quite presumptuous of me thinking he hails from KZN. So definitely Alim will be a staple. So I prepared Alim and other things, savories. And lo and behold, he says, he's the only person from Durban that doesn't like Alim. So Alim was not one of his favorite meals. So I said, Uncle Enver, I can't believe a Durban night not enjoying Alim. He says, no, I'll eat it, but it's not my favorite. And from then, we used to always joke with it. So you know what? It became, even in first was my Qurbani. I mean, his parcel was there, and if I had forgotten to give him his Qurbani, and he'll tell me, oh, this year you didn't cut. This year you didn't cut. He used to wait. So there were little Uncle Anwar traditions. And my Abdurrahman, alhamdulillah, is a father of two now, but as Ashraf mentioned, he was a hardcore, ardent supporter of Manchester United, and my son preferred Chelsea. So every time he'll say, Yoma, we're going in, we're going to get Chelsea and buns. Chelsea buns, and he used to really rattle Abdurrahman. And there were many occasions when Manchester United and Chelsea used to play. Enver was there in the afternoon to watch with Abdurrahman, and the camaraderie and the rivalry, and it just brings back so many good memories, just sitting and talking, everybody speaking. What do you take at the end of the day? It's not your wealth, it's not your material possessions. You take nothing to the qabr but your good deeds. And the fact that we can sit here, celebrate, even if we give you airtime for another 3 hours, that you
Yes,
need another 10 hours to celebrate his life and how he touched hearts' lives. And it was not only to adults, it was senior citizens, your octogenarians, as well as your 2 and 3 year olds
absolutely.
that have special Uncle Enver memories. He was
Memories.
special to everybody in that way. And for me, that is why I needed to have this tribute here. It's for a lesson to tell people. Uncle Enver was a car park manager, but he touched so many lives, from radio personalities to freedom fighters like Sister Amina, Ronnie Casserole. He touched people's lives, to ordinary people. He didn't really worry about who your social standing were. He worried about you as an individual. He cared about you, and he cared about your family. And he didn't like the focus and attention on him,
On
even when he
himself.
was sick.
Yes.
And I tried to
Mm.
connect with him to say, Enver, can we help you? Can we support? No, 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 I'm fine. I'm fine.
Yes.
I'm fine.
Always.
Even up to the
Mm.
end, when I sent, can I have meals delivered to you? No, I have plenty. He never even asked, even for to receive a tip as a car guard. He never expected it. When you
Mm.
gave him, you remember the proverbial Jazakallah, may Allah reward you.
Yes.
That's all. He never used to
Absolutely.
say, oh, you gave me this, you gave me that, whatever. I don't know
Alhamdulillah.
where
That
you
was
find
Uncle
people like that.
Anwar. Yes. Yeah. We will all miss him. May Allah grant him Jannah. May Allah put Noor in his qabr. And may we all learn from him. I was when we heard about
Absolutely.
Uncle Anwar's passing, and we were sharing it on our family group, and I was saying to the boys, really imagine the whole community is at a standstill today. The whole community is talking about Uncle Anwar, that he got such a mashallah day, got such a beautiful we all gonna go, but this is the kind of moth we must ask for. This is a lesson to learn, to be humble, to be kind, to take just everybody's duas. Jazakallah khair, Appa Mariam, for being with us today. We really appreciate your time, and I know it's almost time for you to go and read Taraweeh there in Melbourne. So inshallah, wherever you are, stay safe, be well, be happy. Our salams and duas to Shireen and the family, and of course the baby Baba. Inshallah, Allah grant him full shifa. And Jazakallah for that. We're going to be moving on to our next guest now. I'm very honored to be speaking to Zaidah Hussein. Unfortunately, Zaidah is experiencing load shedding at her place, so she cannot join us on screen, but we've got her on the telephone. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Are you there, Zaidah?
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes, I'm here, Rashida.
Jazakallah so much for taking the time to talk to us today. So, a lot of good things have been said about Uncle Anwar, and we're really, really proud, all of us, and really happy to have known him, to have him touch our lives in such a meaningful and wonderful way. So on the community group, when the chats was going on and everybody was paying tribute to him, in that same breath, in that same afternoon, there was already a Quran khatam arranged, and we were all invited to a house to read khatam for Uncle Anwar. And people just arrived and did that. I mean, there was no formal arrangements made. It just happened. It happened organically, and alhamdulillah. We want to talk a little bit about the initiative that the community has come together, that you and Fatima Rawat have been quite instrumental in putting up. So Amina, actually, Sister Amina already mentioned it, that we were going to be getting money together to put up a well in his name. So Zaidah, can you tell us about that? Because I believe instead of one well, we actually raised enough money for more than that. So if you can just tell us the reason for deciding on a well particularly, and a little bit about that initiative specifically, please.
Yeah, Alhamdulillah. So, one is of Uncle Anwar's passing reached everybody, there was an overwhelming, everybody was saddened and people wanted to contribute either to the family, to the funeral expenses. And when we touched base with the family, they said, no, alhamdulillah, they didn't need anything for the funeral. And people kept on calling Fatima, what they can do, and then we thought, what better way to honor Uncle Anwar and his legacy by doing a water well. So myself and Fatima looked around for a couple of options that passed, and we said, through African Muslim Agency is probably the easiest way so that we don't handle money, because they already had an initiative where you sort of set up a well in Uncle Anwar's name for his Islamic well, and then it's like crowdfunding. So we did the first one, I think, on Saturday afternoon. We set it up, and then on Friday morning, between myself and Fatima, we just sort of okayed the message to go out to the community. And within the morning, we got messages to say people are trying to contribute, but it says that it's, the cart is closed, which is like the shopping cart. We found African Muslim Agency, and they said no, because the amount was already, the target was reached so quickly. And we received an overwhelming support from the community, and from people far and wide. Uncle Anwar had a family in the US that contributed, and then we went back to, on the same afternoon, I think on Sunday afternoon, we went back to African Muslim Agency and said, we're going to create the crowdfunding for additional 2 wells, which we did. And then on Tuesday morning, alhamdulillah, the next 32,500 was reached. And then we decided to close the initiative, so alhamdulillah. So we have managed to fund with the community and everybody supports 3 water wells in Uncle Anwar's name. So there's a little bit of logistics now, or admin on the part of African Muslim Agency. Once all the money is being cleared, then they know that they've got 3 wells that will be done, and they'll hand it over to their project team. And they're looking at Malawi or Mozambique. I know there's been lots of rains in Mozambique, so there's a little bit of delays with actually, completing the well. But once it's done, it will obviously be in Uncle Anwar's name, and the message would be for the Salis Wab of Uncle Anwar, and it's been donated by the community, the Emorinsha. I mean, we'll still look at the wording as Greenside, Emorinsha, and Parkview, and everybody that was checked is essentially that knew Uncle Anwar. So it would be just being donated by the community which he served. So that's where we are.
Yes, alhamdulillah. I mean, I think we can all just be amazed. I've worked at NGOs most of my life, and I can tell you that fundraising is not an easy thing to do. To have a whole well, to have the money raised like that, and I can't even say overnight, in the morning, alhamdulillah. And that,
Morning.
I think, just shows the quality of Uncle Anwar, the kind of love and respect and admiration that everybody had for him in the community. And Ramadan is already quite a difficult time economically for us. We have special foods, and people are paying their zakat, and people are paying extra towards sadaqah and all of that, and nobody has just extra money lying around. But that just shows just how much of love, admiration, and respect everybody had, and everybody wanted to contribute. And I mean, to say
Yeah.
that we wanted to do 1 well, alhamdulillah, we've now managed to do 3 wells in his name. I think that that's an amazing legacy for him, because he was the person, as Sister Amina explained, he was the one that made sure that even the birds were not thirsty when he was around.
Alhamdulillah.
So
Yeah. And I think
alhamdulillah.
we say that the support and our ability to have 3 wells constructed in his name is just a testimony to the amazing individual that he was, and like you said, the number of lives he's touched and how much he has been loved, and there's a lot about his character, and everybody has really sung his praises. He's a kind and compassionate individual, very humble, never took anything from anyone, never asked for anything, but people were very eager to support him in any which way they could. So we'll definitely
Absolutely.
miss him. Like Amina said, we'll miss his Juma Mubarak messages, his
Yes.
presence and around checkers. And alhamdulillah, we are just blessed that we are able to have, we've been able to do this song for Anwar. May Allah accept our efforts, inshallah.
May Allah accept our efforts, yeah. Unfortunately, Zaidah, your line is not doing too good at the moment, so we're gonna have to leave it there. Jazakallah for you for coming on the show and for taking the time to explain what we're doing for Uncle Anwar or in his name. May Allah accept our efforts and may these wells be a
Ameen.
source of eternal sadaqah jariyah for him, and maybe all of our efforts to remember him and honor him be accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Jazakallah khair. I'd like to take this moment to thank all our guests, Uncle Ashraf, Mariam, all the way from Melbourne, Amina, Sister Amina as well, and yourself, Zaidah. Thank you so much. And on a note to end off, I would like everybody listening today to just please maybe read 3 kul to for Uncle Anwar in his name, and whatever you're doing today, just remember him in your duas, because he was a very special person. And I tell you, if something happened to any one of us, he would never forget us in his duas or in his kind thoughts and prayers. Jazakallah khair, everybody, for being with us today. And on that note, we will be signing off today. May Allah grant Uncle Anwar eternal Jannah, peace, and blessings to all. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.